Before we hit the surfside streets of Honolulu, a quick note about spoilers. This review won't dive into anything about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth's story that hasn't already been discussed in its trailers, but it will show a number of amazing gameplay features that you might prefer to discover for yourself. There's still a staggering amount to see and do that I haven't covered in this review, but if you want to go into Kasuga and Kiryu's latest adventure completely fresh, you have been warned. Now, on with the review.
We made names for ourselves as the heroes of Yokohama once before. Let's remind this town just what we're all about, yeah? Hell yeah! Right behind you. Yeah!
As a longtime fan of the series, 2020's Yakuza Like a Dragon came as a bit of a shock to my system. Fun as it was, the sudden switch to stop-start turn-based JRPG attacks was a lot to get my head around after more than a decade of enjoying the series' signature combo-based beat-em-up action. A bit like spending over 10 years getting really good at thumb wrestling and then being asked to play chess. Thankfully, its follow-up Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth substantially retools the combat system. It's still turn-based, but the tactical decision-making introduced by its predecessor is enhanced with more flexible movement and proximity-based attacks that better reflect the rough-and-tumble tactility of the traditional Yakuza street fights. As a result, Infinite Wealth's brawling feels more like the best of both worlds, and its stunning new Hawaiian setting provides the perfect playground in which to unleash its superior style of smackdown.
I'll be showing you all the sights this island has to offer. I call it Yakuza Kahuna Hawaiian style!
Main hero Ichiban Kasuga returns from Yakuza Like a Dragon and remains the lovable human Labrador that he was before.
Another day, another chance to make a difference!
And this time he's paired up with series stalwart Kazuma Kiryu, who we find in a more reflective mood due to his recent cancer diagnosis.
Well, here's to our strange reunion.
This odd couple travels to Hawaii in search of the biological mother that Kasuga has never known. However, they soon find themselves caught in a compelling conspiracy involving a local religious sect and multiple crime syndicates.
We're looking for Akane as well. If you know her whereabouts, I ask that you please tell us.
The ensuing mystery eventually takes some dramatic twists and turns, without ever becoming as tangled as some of the more convoluted plots of the series' past.
You don't have a single shred of proof to defend you. So I can turn you into any criminal I want.
The core supporting cast from Yakuza Like a Dragon are also along for the ride.
Cheers!
Joined by a couple of likable locals.
It's so nice to meet you.
And there are some wonderful scene-stealing villains to encounter as well, including a mob boss played by gruff as ever Danny Trejo.
You got guts betraying me like that.
Despite the fact that some of the lengthier conversation cutscenes took longer to wrap up than a phone call from my parents,
This is getting old.
by and large I found the writing in Infinite Wealth to be some of the strongest in the series to date, whether it was during the heightened moments of genuine drama,
Tell your men to stand down!
or the many lowbrow bursts of comic relief.
So, you're Ichiban's Kasuga. Nice to meet you.
Ichiban Kasuga.
Marking the first time that a Like a Dragon story has shifted beyond the shores of Japan, Infinite Wealth's Hawaii doesn't just feel like an invigorating new setting for the series, but for games in general. Typically, the only games set in the exotic US island state involve operating battleships in World War II, or steering sports cars around its coastline highways. So it's nice to play a game that allows you to slip on a pair of flip-flops and explore this fictionalized slice of paradise on foot. I loved roaming around Infinite Wealth's surprisingly spacious setting, grabbing local delicacies like shave ice to replenish my health,
I like it.
and throwing a friendly aloha to everyone I passed.
Aloha.
Although I quickly learned to not get too friendly with the fire breathers.
Hey!
The Honolulu map is comfortably the biggest featured in the series to date, but it isn't the only location to explore in Infinite Wealth. For around a quarter of the story's 50-odd hour runtime, you get to explore both Yokohama and Kamurocho, complete with a unique set of sub-stories and side activities that allow the gravely ill Kiryu to reminisce about his many earlier adventures and make amends with some of the survivors he's left in his wake. I really relished the opportunity to step away from the streets of rage for a sentimental trip down memory lane.
This brings back memories.
Follow my lead.
Along the way, it becomes clear that while you can take a Like a Dragon game out of Japan, you can't take the heaving hordes of weirdo enemy types out of a Like a Dragon game. Once again, I found myself indulging in regular battles against hundreds of hilariously off-kilter assailants with pun-based names, as though I was locked in an ongoing war with a gang of grown-up garbage pail kids.
Goodbye!
However, this time around, each freaky face-off feels far more lively and intuitive than the comparatively stilted scraps you get into during Yakuza Like a Dragon, thanks to the added freedom to reposition each of your 4 team members within a set movement arc at the start of each turn. This very clever change means you get to inflict bonus damage by moving your character to attack an enemy up close or from the rear. And you can also pick up objects and crash them into crowds in order to share the suffering around. What's more, as the bonds between each member of your party strengthens, additional supporting moves are unlocked to create powerful chain reactions that give each of your turns some extra damaging bang for buck. Controlling Kiryu offers the closest resemblance to the series' street fighting of old, since he's able to switch between 3 fighting stances and gradually fill his trademark heat gauge, which, when triggered, gives you full control of his movement for a brief period and allows you to unleash a series of simple yet supremely satisfying button-based combos in real time. Infinite Wealth delivers a riotous level of chaos and carnage that makes its predecessor's more modest turn-taking seem almost polite by comparison. And what's more, it consistently adds interesting wrinkles to each fighting arena that force me to switch up my strategies. One boss fight in a flaming forest had me scrambling for smouldering logs to pick up and wield, while in another battle aboard a tugboat, I was able to intentionally knock enemies into the open maw of a great white shark, then watch as the beast shook them around and then hurled them back into battle, bleeding from a latticework of lacerations. Although there are certainly some repetitive random encounters to be found out in the streets, the bulk of Infinite Wealth's story mission encounters are gripping to play and extremely hard to forget. The job system from Yakuza Like a Dragon returns in Infinite Wealth, allowing you to alter the class of each character to best suit the makeup of your party. I found the new jobs in Infinite Wealth to be considerably more appealing than those of the previous adventure, and I enjoyed shuffling them around the members of my squad. Whether I was point-breaking noses with a surfboard as the wetsuited Aquanaut, or dual-wielding a pair of pistols as a dusty desperado. Some jobs I favoured for their practical value, but others I chose purely based on how entertaining they were to use. I mean, what Like a Dragon fan wouldn't want to see Kiryu fly-kicking and high-pitched squealing as the Bruce Lee-inspired action star? With each job class I added into the rotation, Infinite Wealth's colourful clashes started to feel even less like standard turn-based scraps, and more like fights that had broken out at a cosplay competition. While there's a greatly expanded list of jobs to take on, actually playing Infinite Wealth never feels like a chore. One of my biggest gripes with Yakuza Like a Dragon's campaign was that my progress stalled when frustrating difficulty spikes in its latter half sent me off to repeatedly grind for experience points for hours on end in order to slowly increase the levels of my party members. I'm happy to report that I ran into no such roadblocks in this campaign, and although the challenge and intensity in its marathon final chapter ramps up more often than an inner-city car park, I never encountered any overpowered bosses capable of wiping out my team in a single blow, or any other cheap tricks. It helps that you're typically given a heads up about the recommended level for your squad members and gear before you head into each major battle sequence, so I never found myself getting caught with my pants down. I just caught plenty of trench coat clad creeps with their pants down instead. It wouldn't be a Like a Dragon adventure if there wasn't an enormous amount of side content to enjoy, and in that regard, Infinite Wealth doesn't disappoint. Yakuza Like a Dragon's Sujimon system returns and has been greatly expanded to include raids, training, and stadium battles. Super Crazy Delivery is an addictive arcade time attack minigame that's effectively what would happen if a driver from Crazy Taxi hopped onto a DoorDash bike.
Super Crazy Delivery!
And Sicko Mode tasks you with photographing a series of Speedo-clad muscle men who are hiding in bushes and startling the local dogs.
Good enough for me.
Each of these are fun and extremely slick, and I'm not just talking about the baby oil that's dripping off the sickos.
I'll do better next time.
One of the most extensive new side activities in Infinite Wealth is Dondoko Island, which could possibly have been called Animal Double Crossing if Nintendo didn't have such expensive lawyers at its disposal. This isolated resort island allows you to fish,
Gotcha!
catch bugs,
Gotcha!
and craft a staggering number of furniture and structures using collected resources, and the best part of all is that there's no Tom Nook to continually bust your balls for bells. There's just these two weirdos that seem to have wandered out of an episode of Yo Gabba Gabba.
Oh yeah, the kids just love us!
It's surprisingly deep, and although my modest interior and exterior design skills haven't been enough to elevate my island rating beyond a 1-star level thus far, I'm keen to invest more hours into it now that I've finished the main story. Indeed, whether you're posing as a movie stuntman or competing in a televised escape room, you're constantly earning experience points and unlocking new combat moves and other useful features, so that your party is always evolving both in and out of battles. Sure, you can get regular dopamine hits by hitting dopes and meanies, but you can also unlock unique combo attacks to perform with your allies simply by having a beer with them in between brawls, at the same time gaining an insight into their backstories and better fleshing out their characters. In fact, almost everything in Infinite Wealth seems worthwhile in more ways than one, and there's a dizzying amount of enjoyable things to do. It seems like developer Ryuga Gotoku's studio has put everything but the kitchen sink in here, but for all I know there might be a giant sink boss named Drain Johnson lurking in one of its dungeons, flanked by his offsiders Tapton America and Farrah Fawcett. Nothing would surprise me, especially since at one point I found myself beating the tobacco out of an anthropomorphic cigarette of all things. It was certainly one way to kick some butt. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth's overhauled combat system injects some welcome flexibility and flash into every turn. Its difficulty curve has been pruned of nasty spikes to remove the need for repetitive grinding that we endured in the last turn-based game, and its spectacular Hawaiian setting is crammed with enough enjoyable activities to overload even the most ambitious of holiday itineraries.
Excellent!
A compelling country-hopping crime story kept me on the hook for the 50 hours it took to complete, and the vibrant new job classes and unique combat arenas ensured that the fighting continued to feel fresh. Sprawling, enthralling, and packed with dynamic brawling, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth isn't just the best turn-based Like a Dragon game, it's one of the greatest games in the entire series.
Let's wrap up this victory! And smile!
For more IGN reviews, check out our verdicts on Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown and Tekken 8. And for everything else, stick with IGN.